Good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to Camelot Castle TV network. And this has been a very, very exciting week. But one of the most exciting things that we've been looking forward to is the opportunity to speak again to Simon Dolan, who is with us this afternoon. Now, as many of you know, Simon is a great British freedom fighter, and he is somebody who had the courage to put together a legal challenge against the government on really questioning the sanity of the lockdown and the sanity of the British government's strategy. So without further ado, I'm going to get Simon on the screen. Simon, welcome home to Camelot. Nice to have you back here.
Nice to be here. Thank you, John.
What started off as a sort of David against Goliath challenge has become the cause célèbre, we would say, or the celebrated cause of the British Isles. And you have been shining the light of truth on a government that clearly doesn't want to listen to the truth. So much water has gone under the bridge since you were last here with us at Camelot. Could you give our viewers an update? What happened? Take them through it in terms of your court case, and then, we'd like to hear where you see things now.
Yeah, sure. Hi, John. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
I think last time I was on, I think we were kind of gearing up for the court case. So all the paperwork was filed, and we were waiting for government to come back. Anyway, we had the High Court appearance, which was sadly all done via video link, but it's not quite the same as when you go to court. And the judge heard the case for a day, which was what he was going to do. And then he very quickly, 2 or 3 days later, he very quickly came back with his decision, which was to deny the judicial review, i.e. to deny us an opportunity to take the government to court, essentially. And he did so on the basis that it was a long judgment, but kind of his reasoning was, well, it's really nothing to do with him. He doesn't want to get involved in politics. He's just a law guy. He's a judge, and therefore he will only judge on the law. And in his view, the law says that it's up to the ministers to decide what they want to do, and therefore we're not hearing any more of it. And that was it. And it was, well, that's actually big, because he kind of disregarded 1,200 pages of evidence in one foul swoop. So, that was kind of disappointing, or maybe not entirely unexpected when you realize what you're up against. And just give one example. So obviously all the schools in the UK were closed, like they were in a lot of countries around the world. Mm-hmm. And part of our case was that you can't do that. You're denying children an education, and it's a human right. And the government's argument was to say, no, we never closed schools. We just asked for them to be closed. And when they start saying things like this, you're just, these are weasel words. Okay. You didn't actually ask them to be closed. You actually said they will be closed. And there's videos of Boris Johnson saying they're going to be closed. You even refer to them reopening, which intimates that they've been closed in the first place. But the judge says, oh, well, so if I was a headmaster of a school and I just phoned up all my pupils and teachers and said, look, we're all going back, that would have been fine, would it? And their barrister, who's a very famous barrister called Sir James Eadie QC, he said, yes, absolutely. The schools could have just gone back whenever they wanted. And then you realize actually what you're up against is, I hesitate to use words, fraud and corruption and all that, because it's not fraud. It's just sticking absolutely to the letter of the law, which is wrong, because what they're doing is they're trying to hide behind legalistic terms when it's not too great a thing to say that they're killing people. People are dying because of this lockdown, and businesses are being ruined, and people out of work and all the rest of it. So you can't hide behind things like that. Even had children committing suicide. You can't imagine a sadder situation than that. And just one last thing, he said, family life, another tenet of our argument was that family life had been infringed upon, which again is another human right. And he said he didn't agree that family life had been impinged upon because everybody could have phoned up relatives or used the internet to view relatives on Skype or whatever, and therefore family life hasn't been interrupted. And and we don't even get a chance to cross. There's no recourse, there's no comeback in this. But you think, you try telling that to somebody who's got an elderly parent in a care home with dementia, who's not been able to see anybody for 4 months. You try telling them that's that's not an infringement of human life. So, really cowardly judgment, I guess, would be the most charitable thing I could say. So, of course, we've appealed against it straight away, and now we're waiting on the appeal. And in the meantime, public sentiment has really come even more so on our side now. Every day I get emails and messages from people who are saying, look, please don't put my name out there because I'm scared of losing my job because we're not allowed to say anything, and we've been warned that we're not allowed to say anything. But I work in the NHS and I'm a nurse, and these things are happening. There's not been any deaths. There's whatever else it might be. So we're getting there, in a long way. And if we don't get there legally, then we get there in different ways. Fundamentally, we're here to expose the truth, which is that COVID exists in a form. It's not particularly dangerous. It's certainly no more dangerous than any other seasonal flu. Some would argue a lot less so. And without doubt, there'll be more of these things coming along in future. So we need to fight back now and say, no, we're not going to accept it. Part of life is dying, and you have to die of something. You can't stop that, and there will be a certain amount of people that will die every year. But this has not been out of the normal, not been out of the ordinary at all. So we continue to fight, but David versus Goliath. Yeah, it still feels like that.
Well, I'm extremely. I can't begin to tell you what a breath of fresh air your campaign has been for so many of our viewers, for so many of our listeners around the world, and you have been an incredible inspiration, but also a demonstrator of somebody that is actually willing to speak out. And I suppose one of the things I've been most saddened by is people who traditionally claim to be humanitarians, claim to be freedom fighters, claim to be interested in the truth, claim to be on some sort of spiritual mission to free the world with the truth. A lot of these people have actually been more like Trappist monks or monks sworn to a vow of silence than the sort of great humanitarians that they claim to be. And I think it is such a thing of great beauty that you've come forward. Now, if there is anybody on here watching that would like to find out more about Simon Dolan's court campaign or get involved in it's really now become a political movement that you've created. It's certainly a movement that is influencing the political narrative. How can they sign up and get updates from you? How can they perhaps contribute? We've got a lot of people on here that like to donate, and I think it's great to flow energy to things that are good. So how can they actually do that?
Well, we've got a website called Keep Britain Free, which is the name of the movement. So just keepbritainfree.com. And then everything they can find is on there, actually. So there's the link to the crowd fund, but also some other useful thing about how people can get involved. So there's some nice media on there that people can download and distribute. There's also a template letter up there for an MP. This is in the UK, so we're getting people writing out to him. Little things like that. I think there's a march planned for this coming Sunday, so there'll be details of that coming out. That'll be in Hyde Park in London. keepbritainfree.com.
Keep Britain Free. And I did notice there was one communication that you made that you were willing to help people who wanted to run as MPs. Is there a plan to sort of create a new political party of freedom? Is that something that it's may have been discussed or that you're looking at seriously?
It's something not exactly on the back burner, but it's something in the back of my mind. And I've got a friend actually who is he's setting up a political party in the UK at the moment, and it's not a small task. It's actually quite a long and complicated procedure, so it needs a lot of thinking about and a lot of people involved, actually. But yeah, it's for me at the moment, I think it's all about building up a base of people that feel the same. And Keep Britain Free is all about the freedom of speech. Basically, is what it all comes down to: freedom to your own life and freedom of speech. Because if you haven't got those two things, then you haven't really got any freedoms at all. And that's all we're asking for. I'd be quite happy if, if the Conservative government or whoever the government was just recognised those two things and didn't infringe on them. Then we wouldn't need another political party, because everything would flow from there. But if we get enough support and it needs to be done, then yeah, we'll field MPs and we'll start taking votes away from the traditional parties. So there, that's definitely an option.
Well, I think Nigel Farage found that when he formed the Brexit Party, it did act as considerable leverage to the narrative, and it was definitely a strategic action that helped straighten out, the country philosophically in relation to the Brexit issue. And I'm sure that the willingness to begin a party, but I do completely agree with you. And what I would ask everybody who's watching here to do, especially our friends in the United States and in other countries, please do share this broadcast. It's very, very important that people have the opportunity. Simon Dolan, for those of you that have just joined us, is one of Britain's most successful entrepreneurs. He has built a considerable fortune as a private investor and as a businessman. And I think your background is in accounting, isn't it?
Yeah, a long time ago, but yeah, that was one of my first businesses.
That was one of your first businesses. How do you see the economic fallout from, as an accountant, looking at what the government has done? How do you see what's happening with the economy? And I was in a shopping mall 2 days ago in Bristol on Cribbs Causeway, and only about a third of the businesses were open. Businesses like Pret a Manger would shut up shop. Another business that was shut was Café Rouge.
It was pretty empty anyway.
It was like a morgue in there, really. And then a lot of the shoppers there were sort of very furtive and fearful.
It was very, very empty.
To me, it looked like a depression waiting to happen.
Well, it was a depression in the making.
A depression in the making. I'm not a professional accountant. You are. How do you see? Give us the raw truth.
Well, it's a long time since I did any accounts, but I certainly know business, and I know an awful lot of people in business, and I know how business works. And it's catastrophic, I guess. For a lot of industries, is the best way of putting it. How is a restaurant going to survive? Restaurants work on being basically 70% full. If you're 70% full, you're breaking even. Well, if you've got to spread the tables out, immediately you can't possibly be 70% full, so you're losing money every time you open the doors. Maybe if it's a chain like Starbucks or McDonald's, maybe they can cope with it. But your average restaurant on the high street, your average coffee shop, they're done for sure. I can't see any of them. And who would open a new one, knowing that this could happen any time again, or possibly could any time again? So they're done. I think any traditional shop on the high street who was struggling anyway, they're done. Where are they going to go? So I think all of those people are going to be finished. I know that an awful lot of businesses have been streamlining. So these are businesses in offices and so on and so forth. And people have actually worked quite effectively at home. So it turns out that you don't actually need quite so many people in the office. Mm-hmm. So then all of those people a lot of people who had jobs in offices are now going to be unemployed, because companies have had to slim down and now they've realized that they can cope without them. So they'll be them gone. Then you've got commercial landlords. That's another big consideration, because if you haven't got as many offices and haven't got as many shops, then who's going to be renting their space and what happens to that space? There's just, you can't imagine that the economy is this interconnected web. It all helps to prop the rest of it up. And if you pull one, it's like a Jenga block, you pull one out and then the whole thing comes crashing down. And I really think that we're going to have some problem. In the UK, you're going to have some problems. And I can see 6-7 million people unemployed by Christmas or just after Christmas. And if we imagine when we went back to the last Labour government, which the worst it got, I think, was 3 million or 3.5 million. So we're in for a tough time. And how does the government shore that up? Well, they just pay them. They have to throw money at them, whether it be by benefits or furlough or whatever. Same thing these days. So where does that money come from? Well, they print it. It has to be paid back at some time. Where's that going to come from? The economy's shot, so it's not going to come from increased taxes. Arguably, what they'll need to do is decrease taxes. So that's going to be an issue. I don't know the way out of it, actually, for the UK. I would have said that, last time we were talking, which was probably only, maybe 6 weeks ago or something.
It was about 6 weeks ago, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would have said at that time, if the UK just got out of it, opened everything up, did a trade deal with America, probably would have been okay. Better served than anybody else in Europe. But now with the constant prevarication, opening up, closing down, local lockdowns, face masks, no face masks, some businesses open, some businesses not. We are going to enforce it. We're not going to enforce it. It's just absolutely shambolic leadership. Shambolic. Looking at a broader picture, I'm actually quite hopeful for the US, actually, and to all our friends in the US, you're a lucky institution over there, and it might get walked over quite a lot, but you still have it to fall back on, and I think that's been a saving grace over there. Along with having Donald as president, you've got a pro-business guy who's president, and somebody who understands how the world really works, and not as a politician does. So, I see a lot of manufacturing coming back from China, because obviously China's closing up now, and so you can have an awful lot of jobs coming back that way. So touch and go. And with the rest of Europe failing, then I think America stands to gain. I wouldn't go so far as this era, but they'll be fine. I think they'll be fine. So good news across the.
Yes.
Well, I think good news in America, unless, of course, on the 3rd of November, President Trump does not make it, in which case I think it will be an absolute disaster. I cannot imagine that there would be anyone worse than our government, but I think a Biden-led administration would be something. The guy is mentally impaired, as far as I can see.
Well, Biden's a Trojan horse, isn't he, for the Democrats? That's the only reason they're pushing. He's got Alzheimer's. Is evident for anybody to and see. So you push him forward, and then he'll do whatever he's told. But I cannot see Donald Trump losing to Biden. Trump wins. That's what he does. Yeah. He's not going to lose to Biden. I actually see it being a landslide. I really see a Republican landslide. And then, he's got 4 years to really try and do something, get the manufacturing jobs back, which he's been doing, but, even more so. Hopefully they'll control, both parts of government, so they can, both houses, so they can start getting, proper legislation through, which he wants to do, start cutting spending, cutting taxes, all the good stuff, all the stuff that we know. But this past 4 years, he's been fighting with one hand tied behind his back, with the impeachment and with everything else that's been going on, being blocked at every turn. And I think if he's released from that, if there is a red wave, then it could be some good things. It's not going to be without pain, but I do think that they're best set to come forward. If Biden gets in, I don't know. We're all going to move to Iceland or somewhere.
Yeah. Well, now, we did touch on it a little bit earlier, but I think your concept of a whistleblowing opportunity for the NHS and for the police, or for anybody really that in government even, probably there are people in Downing Street itself that have witnessed things that are somewhat alarming against the idea of keeping Britain free. What is the best way that people, I think you mentioned you are looking at setting up a website specifically for whistleblowers, but how can people, again, for those people who are watching, why do you think the whistleblower is so important at this time? And B, how can they just do that function and be assured that they will not be, their identity will not be given? Hello?
Sorry, John, I don't know if you can hear me. I've got no sound at all.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, you can hear me okay. I've got no, I don't know what's happened with this, but we've got no way of hearing.
Do you want to dial back in again? recall back in again. Call back in again.
I'm going to have to. I'll tell you what. I'll reset and
Recall.
come back.
Reset. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with the internet here.
Is it? Are we live now?
We're live. Yes, we're live, but we're just waiting for. Sorry for those of you. We are interviewing Simon Dolan, who's just coming back in on the broadcast, and we've got some sort of interference been going on. Which I don't understand why that is, but our interviews here are being interfered with. Here we have Simon. I'm going to bring him on screen now. And here he is. How's that, Simon? Can you hear me now?
I've still got no sound.
You've still got.
I cannot hear you at all.
Can you press? Have you pressed something?
You've got no sound?
No.
I can hear you. No.
Press
I
the
can't
button.
hear you at all.
Is it muted?
Everything else is okay. Picture's okay. So I think my connection's all right.
I don't
Did
think
you
there's
mute?
anything.
No, we haven't muted anything.
I haven't muted anything. I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
No.
No, I can't hear anything. I'll tell you
Okay,
as soon as I can hear you. I'll tell you, but I've got nothing at the moment.
Okay. Let me just change the internet setting.
I don't think that's the internet, to be honest.
How is that now?
No,
No.
Simon.
We'll go out one more time.
Oh my God, this is annoying.
I do apologize. This is Simon Dolan, who is the man who has taken the British government to court, and he is also putting together a whistleblowing campaign,
Which is very
which
important.
is fantastic. Now, for those of you that have not donated to Simon Dolan's campaign, can I suggest that you do so? And the way that you do that is you do that by visiting Keep Britain Free, and that would be much appreciated. It is so important, the work that he is doing, and the new whistleblowing campaign that he is engaged upon, that he is embarked upon, is very, very exciting indeed. You can follow him on Twitter. I don't think he's going to be coming back again, darling. Is there anything that you would like to add to what Simon has been saying?
No, I wanted to ask Simon about the public sentiment in the UK, which is a shame that we can't ask him, because I'm just really curious what's changing in the public perception, because we went from people being convinced of the virus and the importance of the lockdown, and I'm really curious, what has he found that the public opinion is shifting? Because I don't see how it can't be shifting, but he's obviously on the front lines, and I think the whistleblowing campaign is very important, and we shared it on Facebook, and the response was really great. People sharing the links, and I think the more it is shared, the more chances we have for the whistleblowers to come forward.
Well, somebody's saying here, Penny Boyle is saying whistleblowers are needed for sure in the UK, and I completely agree with you.
And I think
they are.
I mean, to be honest with you, they are overdue, because the Americans started to come forward long time ago, months ago they started, and in the UK, we know that things haven't been right, but we haven't had enough people sharing what they know.
Well, here we go. Simon's trying to dial in again.
Okay, let's try. Hopefully, maybe this time. There we go.
How we go, Simon? Can you hear me now?
No, he's coming live.
Hear you. We're back. Fantastic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. I don't know what happened.
Oh,
anyway, we're back. Great.
To be honest with you, I think we're being slightly interfered with here. To be absolutely frank, it wouldn't surprise me, and I know it's happening to other people.
It wouldn't surprise me at all.
I think Camelot Castle TV reached about 1.6 million people directly over lockdown, and I think about 100 million indirectly through people sharing. So this is a very positive channel. Now, Irina, you had a question for Simon.
I wanted to ask you, Simon, how are you finding public sentiment in the UK? Is it changing? Because we went from the very beginning of the lockdown, people very, obedient and convinced that, lockdown is the best thing and observing the rules. And I am curious, have you found a change in public opinion? Are people more aware, or is it just still very small groups of people that are aware that things are not right? Because you're on the front lines of this campaign, I'm very curious to see if you noticed a change.
Yeah, very much so. So when I first started, I would say probably, half the comments you would get back on social media would be in some way disparaging, from the death threats to the just not agreeing with you. And now it's very few. You might get 100 comments and maybe 2 will be negative. And usually you can identify those as being bots or 77th people, trying to manipulate things. So yeah, there's been a big change. I do think, I was speaking to somebody earlier on today, I actually think that people are still a bit scared, but I think that's got an awful lot more to do with the fact that their habits have now been broken. You imagine everybody who works in an office for their whole working life, they've got on the train and they've gone into an office. Now for 3 months, they haven't done that, so they're in a new habit now, which is staying indoors. And you wonder whether there's a little bit of claustrophobia that's built in, and it's kind of just this reticence to go outside and do the things that they used to do. And I think that when people get back to normal, which is what we want, new normal, we just want normal. When people get back to normal, they'll be fine and life will just go on. But the government doesn't let you. This latest thing, what my real big gripe about masks and mandating masks is a constant visual reminder of there's this silent evil killer, going around, because there's no science, or very little science for the efficacy of masks anyway, and there's no bloody virus going around. It was so small. Even the government's own figures, out of 10,000 people they tested, 13 I think had it, and of those, most, all of them will get better anyway. So it's, no one used to worry about this before, but the media campaign has been so good by the government, and you have to admit that it's been very, very good. That people are terrified of this thing that previously they never thought anything of. Used to be in a tube in London, packed with people on a rainy day, and people coughing and sniffling all around you. Never thought anything more about it. Now, if anybody comes within 2 feet of someone who hasn't got a mask on and covered in cling film or something, all of a sudden everybody's in a panic and starting a row. Well, nothing's changed other than what the media messages have been. So yeah, this is why it's important for us to try and get the right thinking people have a medium to get their message out, because there's so many avenues for the ill thinking people, or the non-thinking people, which I think is more accurate. That we need to get our message out, and we tend not to be as vocal. Strangely, I don't know why that is. But, we need to change that.
And how is your whistleblowing campaign going? Are you getting a lot of people coming through?
Yeah, I only started it yesterday, and I've had probably a good dozen, verified ones that have come through. So that's nurses, dentists, fire people, police, the whole range really. Care home workers, they're the really sad ones actually. People, school. What did I have? Education welfare person. You don't hear about these, but her job was to essentially look after vulnerable children, so people that are not ill or whatever, but they go to school, but they've got big problems.
Gone again.
Much. Well, what happened to those people who needed someone, and this adult was the only person probably that was a stable influence in their life, and they've gone. What's happened to those? No one reports them, no one talks about them. But that was one person. Multiply that, I'm sure there's hundreds of those offices throughout the country. Multiply that by, probably a good 2 dozen kids that they have each. It's thousands. What long-term damage are we storing up there? So, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of stories, tragic stories, which, are going to have a nasty end, I think.
Will you be publishing those?
Yeah, anonymously, obviously.
Yeah.
So there's some that I put up on Twitter, or the longer ones on Facebook or whatever. And, there's pieces that can be run, we can get something in the mainstream media, but really with the mainstream stuff, it probably gets less attention than if I put it up on my own social channels. So it's sort of, I may just as well do it through those. And
for those of you that are watching, everybody should follow Simon Dolan. It's at Simon Dolan on Twitter. And it's a great account to follow, because you really do see the shifts and the turns. I mean, it's fascinating. We had a group of nurses and doctors staying here over the weekend, and they'd been in one of the COVID wards. And they said the first heads up that they got is after they'd been, for the first few months, they had no masks other than the little paper masks. They had no proper PPE in the NHS. And they felt that the reason for that was that the government actually wanted them all to get exposed so that they would get some sort of immunity. But then, of course, they had all had a test now, and there were 5 of them staying, and none of them had caught it at all, you see. And these are people who'd been intubating people. One of the girls was actually in charge of putting in the ventilators and had been dealing with the COVID patients. So you'd have thought 5 people had been exposed to this thing morning, noon, and night, and none of them had been caught it at all. So this idea that it's, you know, dreadfully catching and so on and so forth is not necessarily true. So
no, I don't know how virulent it really is, you know, and to this day I still don't know anyone who's had it. I know quite a lot of people. I don't know anyone who's actually had it. You know, you think if you think about your close network of people that you know, and then their networks, you know, it's probably 1,000 people or something. In offices. I think we had maybe one person in one of the offices. Well, I employ, I don't know, 600-700 people or something across the businesses. I think we've had 1 or 2 people. You know, it just, if it was, you know, if it was a really, you know, Ebola or something, and it was really catchy and really, really awful and terrible, I'd be the first person shut at home in a mask, in a biohazard suit. You know, absolutely 100%. It's not that I'm sort of being flippant with life or anything like that, but I just don't see any kind of evidence really whatsoever outside of the figures that are published by the government. But even they're starting to fall to bits now. So it's there, but it just isn't, like I said, right at the very top. You know, it's no worse than stuff that just goes around normally. You know, every year we've had this.
No.
No, 100%.
And what I don't like is they seem to be, their social programming seems to be teeing us up for a second wave or a second spike, and that's probably just going to end up being the flu. So they'll probably end up locking down for the seasonal flu that we get every November. Where do you sit on vaccination? Do you have a view on that, Simon, or is that something that?
Yeah, I do. You know, there's obviously a lot of people out there that are, you know, scared. Scared of mandatory vaccination. I would be scared of mandatory vaccinations, 100%. I think it is absolutely fundamentally wrong to have mandatory vaccination, which would appear to be where things are going. And you can make it mandatory. You can either make it mandatory by law, or you can just make it mandatory by you not being able to do anything if you haven't got a vaccination. You can't fly, you can't get a job, you can't get benefit, you can't get it, you know. So there's more than one way of doing it. And to me, someone said, you know, it's how is a mandatory vaccination any different to rape? You know, and actually I don't think it is. No. So that's very wrong. Do I disagree with vaccination? No. I don't. I think that the overall statistics are that it saves people than it damages, you know, and you can't deny that it's eradicated smallpox and measles, or not eradicated, but, you know, made measles a lot better and so on. So I believe that they do some good for the majority of people, but that's up for people to decide for themselves. Look at the evidence. If you want someone sticking a needle in you with stuff that you don't know what it is, well, fine. Yeah, knock yourself out. It's your life. You have that right. And it goes back to basic freedoms. You know, you've got the right to your own life, and how you choose to live it and what you decide to do with your body should be entirely up to you, assuming you're not infringing anybody else's right to their own life. So that's a real basic fundamental, you know, that's Declaration of Independence stuff. And it seems to work quite well over there. So don't see why we should be any different. The whole Bill Gates thing, you know, Bill Gates has obviously gone down the track of he's going to spend all his money on vaccinations or research into vaccinations, because that's what he believes to be the biggest benefit to humanity. So of course you're going to see his name all over everything that's got anything to do with vaccinations. So my take on it is probably a lot less extreme than a lot of other people. I just really think that it's far it's important to come back to the issue of choice and freedom, rather than trying to get to the bottom of motivations for why they would want to do this and want to do that. You know, we've still not got to the bottom of what happened to JFK. That was 50 years ago, you know, so we're not going to get to the bottom of this if there is a conspiracy of some sort. So I think it's far better to just go for the things that we do know and that we can fight for, and that's choice and freedom, and they're easily understandable. And I think, like I say, fundamental rights. You know, if the government takes away your right to life, we haven't got anything left, have you?
No, I think that's extremely wise. And just a personal question. You have a very, you know, we've spoken a few times, but you have a very, very solid compass on this idea of personal choice and freedom. And it really sets you apart from the average businessman, I would say, even the average successful businessman in the UK. What happened in your life that gave you that certainty and that sort of, I mean, you're very certain on that, and you are an upholder of freedom, and I'm an upholder of power of choice, and it sort of, I get that it sort of permeates your whole business model. What happened to you in your life? Was there a sort of an epiphany point or something? I'm sorry to be sort of personal, but I'm just.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. As long as I can remember, I've hated being told what to do. I can't bear it. I still can't bear it, no matter who it is or what it is. So I've always hated that. And then probably when I was, what age was I? Maybe 30 or something like that. So I'd always had that feeling, and I've always been fairly independent. I've run my own businesses since I was 21 or something. I think I've only ever worked for someone twice in my life. One of those was a job when I was a kid on the market. And then a friend of mine said, "Have you ever read a book called Atlas Shrugged?" And I hadn't, but I'd heard of it. And so he said, "Oh, you should read it. It's really good." So anyway, I read this book, and it's by this lady called Ayn Rand, and she's behind objectivism, which is actually, I think, a lot bigger in America and a lot more well known in America than it is in the UK. But worldwide, you know, it's a phenomenon. And her philosophy really is that, you know, is you have your right to your own life. And no one has the right to take it off you. And you know, one of her great quotes was, someone said to her about her philosophy, you know, what right have you got to do this or something? And she said, "It's not that. It's who's gonna stop me," you know. So and that was that. And so I read more and more about her philosophy and objectivism and so on. And that just really probably reinforced the ideas that I already had, but gave me a philosophy of why I believe that's right. You know, it gives you a rationale for it rather than it just being something that pops in your head. And then, you know, you get more interested. And then I started reading about a fascinating book about how America started. You know, so obviously there was, you know, the Declaration of Independence and the...
Who was that by?
Oh God, I forget who the book was by. I'll send it over to you. It's a book about how did America get to the mindset of actually declaring independence? Yeah, that was it. And so, but for 10, 20 years beforehand, there was a guy called John Locke who was English, and he was the one who came up with the idea of the fundamental freedoms, and he came up with that idea, basically trying to get back to an irreducible minimum. You know, if we're talking about what human rights there should be, what's the most basic right of all? What is your, you know, like I said, irreducible minimum? What is your 1 + 1 = 2 of human rights? And he came back up with, well, you know, you're born, therefore you have the right to your own life. If you have nothing else, you have the right to your own life and to decide what to do with it. And that was his starting point. And from there, actually, the Declaration of Independence came. You know, that was why, you know, no taxation without representation and all that. It all comes from that one thing. So I'm very much a believer in keeping things simple. And I actually believe if you take that as a reference point of your life, then everything else becomes really clear, because you either have got the right to your own life or you haven't. And if you haven't, it's wrong. And if you have, it's right. whatever you choose to do with that, And again, it's freedom of speech is exactly the same thing. How could anybody else have the right to tell me what I can say? It doesn't make any sense, does it? It makes no sense. You can believe what I say, or you can say it's rubbish, or you can choose not to listen, or a million other things. But to actually say, no, you haven't got the right to use your mouth and enunciate the words in the way that you choose, to me is wrong. And obviously, you get into arguments about incitement to violence and all that, which of course is wrong. But that's where in America you're lucky. It's the one place in the world where you still do actually have freedom of speech. You'd be shocked in the UK about how little freedom of speech we actually have, and that's a very slippery slope.
Well, I'm so pleased I asked that question, because your answer, you have just articulated better than I ever have the reasons why we've been doing this broadcast from Camelot Castle. We just say that King Arthur said the table was round for a reason, and that everybody's ideas here are welcome, and that if we can't speak freely here at Camelot, where the hell is free speech going to happen? So that's why we've been communicating. And I always say this is a buyer beware television channel. If you accept what you hear on here, that's up to you. And if you want to disagree with it, that's up to you as well. But we trust you, the audience. We trust you to discern. And it is an absolute pleasure. Funnily enough, have you ever thought about moving to America, or because I've been watching what's going on over here now, and I've been thinking about it more and more. But is it something that you've considered?
Yeah, it's something I'm actively looking at actually at the moment. So yeah, and it is actually the Constitution that attracts me. You always have that to fall back on. I said to you about the economy earlier on. I do think that America is probably the best placed. It's not going to be great, but I think it's the best placed in the world to come out of this. You've still got a fantastic infrastructure there. You've got all your own natural resources and so on. So it could be quite insular and still successful, and has been for 250 odd years.
Where are you looking at it in America? Out of interest, just
Florida or Texas has come on the radar, or even Colorado, possible, but possibly Texas is looking favorite. I like the kind of old-fashioned America.
I love that.
Yeah,
but like the sort of the white picket fence type of a sort of town type of a thing,
Colonial
like the
houses.
sort of colonial houses that they have there, or like the sort of
it depends on what day I wake up. Some days I want a 100,000-acre ranch, and other days I want one of the colonial, nice colonial houses. But I don't know. Someone pointed
the thing
out
about America is if you work hard, you can have both.
Yeah.
Yes.
And everybody there is happy for you. And it's funny. I was up in Bristol. I was looking at a new car the other day, and I seriously had to think, but if I get that one in England, if I drive that in England, that's a real envy creator, and I don't want to create that effect. I want people to sort of enjoy it with me, because having lived in America myself for 6 years, I don't live there now, but I did live there in the 90s. And the where people are so blessed. And by the way, you Americans that are watching this, you guys are, you don't know how lucky you are to have America, and long may America win. The freedom here, frankly, we're trying here, but frankly, Simon, honestly, I think we're fighting a rearguard action here. I think the stable door was open and the horses bolted, sadly, but
what though? But the worse things get, the more opportunity I see. Because you have to, the pendulum has to swing too far the other way before it can swing back our way. And I really do think we're getting there. You just need to communicate this fundamental idea. Look at Farage and Brexit.
Yeah.
What was so nice about that was it was so easy to understand. Do you want to be in or out? But it's really fundamental. Do you want to be in Europe or don't you want to be in Europe? That was what was so powerful about his message and his campaign. And I don't think it was so much to do about the way it was presented or anything else. It was just simply a very, very easy thing for people to vote on and understand. And this is what we need to get back to in with our campaign. Do you want freedom or not? That's why I said keep Britain free, because you want to be free or want to be locked up. That's the fundamental question. And if you want to be locked up, great, your choice, but don't lock me up with you. No, I haven't given up hope. I haven't, because there is an awful lot. And like we said, there's an awful lot of right-thinking people out there, but they're just quieter for whatever reason. Probably because we're busy working and going about our own lives and not fussing into everybody else's lives. But we do need to change that a little bit. We need to start being vocal. And if you see more and more of these awful things happening in the UK, then more and more people will go, you know what, I actually am going to have to stand up and say something or do something. And hey, look, my neighbor thinks the same as I do. I don't know about you, whoever I speak to, everybody thinks lockdown's an absolutely ridiculous idea. I'm sure they're all the same. And yet if you go on the Daily Mail or comments or whatever, loads of comments saying, oh, it's a great idea, it's a great idea, it's a great idea. No, that doesn't, to me, that doesn't make with reality. I'll
tell you something very interesting statistic. We've had the hotel open here, and we've been pretty full actually in the hotel, and we've had some record booking days, funnily enough, at Camelot Castle. And we've only had one person so far here turn up in a mask.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting, which maybe that speaks to the type of person that wants to come to stay at Camelot Castle. They tend to be a more positive type of, we have great customers. But I know last night in the bar, we were absolutely in hysterics discussing, I'd been up to this mile, as I said to you, and there was a fellow, we'd run out of the little Nespresso capsules, the George Clooney capsules. And we walked into Nespresso, and there was a fellow there in glasses, in a mask, behind a visor, behind perspex. And you know what? He was pretty damn safe, this guy. And I said, how are you doing with this?
And he had no customers.
And he had no customers. He said, I said, how are you doing with all this? He says, well, I can't see very well, but I'm all right.
He's a sort of poor guy who, at the end of his shift, he'll take everything off and then cross the street and get hit by a bus.
I know. Yeah. Well, he was a lovely guy, and I don't blame him. But I mean, it is interesting. And of course, Apple was being run like a bloody military operation. They had sort of bouncers outside. And obviously what's interesting is a few of the corporations are actually seeing this as an opportunity to push the leftist narrative. So where you have corporations that are, if you like, part of the American leftist, I call them culturally Marxist promoting activity, then they're seizing upon this to help the narrative. I mean, what I have always said that I feel, I don't know the origins of the virus, but what I do know is that the narrative was hijacked in order to attempt to prevent Trump from being elected. And I just feel that Britain has somehow got caught up with that globalist plot generally, that sort of general idea. But over here, we're so compliant and so sort of, in a way, some of us have been so easily brainwashable that a sort of a plan to prevent Trump from being elected is now going to bankrupt, the UK or seriously damage it. But that's how I see the general picture. But I can't thank you enough, and I can't thank you enough for sharing your ideas. Is there a Simon Dolan final thought that you would like to share with the audience? Anything that you would like to ask them for? How can they help you?
Helping is just like we've just been saying, really, is just spreading the word, and not necessarily the word about me, but the word about, thinking for yourself and freedom, because that is actually what we're finding. We're more and more governments encroach on everyday life, and they have been doing it for years. But for me, this has become the tipping point where you go, no, you can't do that. That's enough. And I think the more people that stand up, the government can't control everybody. If everybody decides one day that they're not going to pay tax, or not going to wear a mask, or not going to do this or not going to do that, nothing they can do. Literally nothing they can do. So we've seen it with face masks. They're mandating face masks in shops in the UK as of the 24th of July. Why they don't do it now, if it's a good idea, is beyond me. They just wait until a couple of weeks. But so many shops have now come up and said, well, we're not enforcing it. Well, if everybody did that, and these are big shops, the Co-op, Lidl, various ones. Yeah, so many are saying basically we don't get involved. So they're saying, look, to all the shop assistants, they're saying, look, don't enforce it. If they come in a mask, fine. If they don't. But you can't enforce it. Don't enforce it. We'll leave the police to enforce it. The police have turned around and said, well, we're not enforcing it. We haven't got the manpower. What are we going to do? Fine someone £100 for not wearing a mask is ridiculous. So you have this situation where civil disobedience, in a very small way, actually works. And that's all you need to do. You just have to get enough people to stand up against it, and then pretty soon, all of a sudden, that isn't, that's just binned off into the long grass. And well, we never said that, we never meant it, we didn't really close schools, all this nonsense. But no, I think it's time just to stand up and say enough is enough. Yeah.
And enough what do you see with schools in September, Simon? How do you?
I've heard, they were saying, oh, schools are going to go back, and schools. A few people have sent me letters that they've received from schools that are saying that the schools are considering moving to a blended learning experience, they call it. So that means you're 2 days at school and 3 days sat at home in front of the internet watching YouTube videos, I guess, or doing Zoom meetings. And again, the way the government will get away with this, in the court case that we ran, they argued that the right to education isn't the same as a right to go to school.
Right.
So provided that the government give you an education, then that's fine. That's fulfilled what they need to do under European law. But, you think, for me anyway, that the 99.9% of the benefit of going to school is learning how to deal with other people. Because that's what you do all your life. The stuff you learn there is, rubbish, basically. But the, learning how to deal with other people, getting bullied, all of the stuff that you have to go through when you're at school, that's important. And they've not had that. Kids have not been in school since February, and they're not going to be in school until at least September. And then if it's 2 days a week, okay, parents at work, what are they going to do?
What are they?
They could pay for childcare. Well, they can't afford it because their taxes have just gone up, or because one of them's out of a job. So yeah, and it goes on and on and on. So I really hope not. I hope that's not going to happen. But you can bet your life if a few of them start talking about it, then the teachers' unions will get involved with it, and they'll insist that they can only work 2 days a week. And again, another slippery slope. But there's a Bill Gates tie-in again there. You see, as much as I'm not a conspiracy theorist, Bill Gates has been pushing distance learning because Microsoft would stand to gain on the back of that. So, who knows?
Yeah,
he's the deep rabbit hole.
Yeah, I am not a conspiracy theorist either, but I am somewhat of a student of some of these recent ideas that have been floating around. All I would say is that at Camelot Castle, we will not be enforcing masks at all. We will not be doing that. We believe that is an individual's freedom of choice, and so we will not be enforcing. I would also like to say, Simon, that part of me fully understands you're looking at moving to America, and I certainly am looking at moving to America. But part of me wishes that I don't, and part of me wishes that you don't leave this beloved country of ours, this sceptred isle, this, sovereign nation, because I think that if the sovereign beings leave the sovereign nation, I think it will really be in trouble. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's one of the reasons we bought Camelot in the first place. It's one of the reasons we've been doing the TV channel, and that we do everything that we've done. But at the same time, for all of our viewers that are in America, you do not take for granted what you have, and do whatever you need to do to make sure that our favorite president wins big. Both houses with a socking great big landslide would be fantastic.
That's
if you don't
priority.
mind. And that I think that's the most important priority, and that's what we're trying to do here at Camelot Castle, is to help with that. So,
I don't think on that low. I don't think it's too big a stretch to say that Donald Trump potentially is the man that could save the Western world. If the Democrats got in the US, we're full on socialism everywhere.
100%.
And we know where that ends up. We know it always ends up the same way. And he's not had an easy time, has he? Christ, he couldn't have had a harder time for a president, and yet he's still in there fighting. So, my God, yeah, I hope he wins. But I think he will. Yeah,
well, Simon, on that note, as you know, we do have friends in DC that will be watching this broadcast tonight. You have done tremendous things to help the freedom movement in the UK. Is there a personal message that you would like to communicate to the President of the United States?
Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Total admiration. He knows all this stuff anyway, but they never give up and keep fighting, and a lot more people love him than hate him, and all the rest of those things. And you think, yeah, that. You just know people. This is how he won the election. He knew people. He didn't believe polls. He didn't believe social media. He didn't believe any other nonsense. Didn't believe the celebrities, all the rest of that stuff. He just went on and did his own thing. And I would, if he was in front of me now, I'd probably just shake his hand and say, well done. What other message could you give to somebody like that?
Well, beautiful. That's beautiful, and he's a very special man. And thank you so much, Simon.
And Simon, please continue the whistleblower channel, because that has resonated with people so much, and we would like to help you and share this message and get as many people to come forward, because certain people will only believe the whistleblower accounts, and I think that's the key in getting more public in the UK on board with the campaign. I think this is very, very important.
Yeah, I agree with you, definitely. There's a long queue of people.
Mm.
And as soon as you're in the UK, do come and see us here at Camelot. We will have.
I can't wait. I'm probably going to be there I'm hoping to get there in a couple of weeks or so. So if I am, I'll give you a shout, and I'll fly down and see you. That'd be lovely.
Well, we will have a noble welcoming committee here for you, and that will be wonderful.
All the best to it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
All the best.
Bye.
Well, I'm glad we managed to conclude the interview.
Yeah, that was really special, darling. Thank you so much for great questions, really. And what a very, very interesting guy. And I thought it was interesting that obviously he said the oranges. I thought one of the most important point about the interview was the origins of America, and how he himself, Simon Dolan, had never really liked being told what to do. But then as he started to read, he read the works of Ayn Rand, of course, Atlas Shrugged, which is a book that I would thoroughly recommend that everybody reads. Atlas Shrugged is one of the great masterpieces of freedom. And then there's another book which he read, which I wasn't familiar with, which has to do with how America was formed. But he is going to do that. And it was interesting that we're both now thinking about, if England really is going to go in this direction, we are obviously thinking about leaving the country and going to live in America, if that is possible. And, well, they've got a merits point-based system, so we'll have to prove that we are worthy of the American.
I think it's brilliant.
I think it's a brilliant system. So we'll have to, if we're not worthy, we'll have to make ourselves worthy, and do something else. So
I think it's very important for the UK audience, and even for the Americans too, because on social media, it all helps to share the communication channel for the whistleblowers, because we posted Simon's details. I posted it less than 24 hours ago, and I had so many shares on Facebook, over 200 shares. And I think it's the key to getting the truth out there, because, like I said, there are certain people that I know, many people, that they would only believe the whistleblowers. They will believe the NHS nurses or the police officers, regular people who come forward and share their experience. And I think that holds the key to waking up the British public. And the fact that he created this channel is incredibly helpful and an incredible service. And the more we can share it and get it out there, so people know that there is an anonymous channel where their identity will not be exposed, because obviously that would be a threat to their livelihood, because they will be suspended from their jobs if they are seen to talk to the media. And the fact that it is safe and anonymous channel, I think it's very, very important.
Very much so. Of course, in America, they have Project Veritas, which is a fantastic whistleblowers channel. But let me ask any of our viewers on here, please encourage many other whistleblower channels to open. I think we should all be demanding that whistleblowers start blowing their whistles. And it's very, very important. There's never been a more important time. And the more independent whistleblower channels there are out there, you know, let's use the internet. This internet has been used against us. Let's use this internet to forward messages of freedom. Let's use it to forward messages of freedom.
And I would go as far as saying that the freedom, for example, the freedom in this country, the freedom of the UK and the freedom of America, but the UK especially so, is in the hands of the whistleblowers.
Well, that is wonderful. Somebody says, my mother sends you her regards and support. Lala, I think that's my dear old friend. And yes, there we go. What can I say? Well, all the very, very best to your dear mother, Lala. This is a very important time, and I know that you are a great freedom fighter, and so is she. So is she. How nice. So, great job today. You're very kind. And Nora Burgess says, I pray daily for the protection of President Donald Trump.
We all should, and thank you.
Out of interest, where is everybody here tuning in from? There's two questions I've got for you. A, where are you tuning in from? And guess how many people we reached directly and indirectly over the lock up, lock down, lock sideways period. So put those in the comments. How many people do you think that Camelot Castle TV reached over lockdown? And when your comment comes up, what I'd like everybody to do is say where you're from, where you're coming in from. And what I would do is, if everybody on the stream can say like a positive prayer or make a positive wish for that person as their name comes up on the screen. So we'll just do this. We like to do this because, you know what, Facebook is YouTube is a telepathic community as well as a physical community. So look, we've got Richmond, Virginia, Chris Taylor, Germany, Ireland. Okay, let's have a little bit of good luck for this fellow.
Northern Ireland.
In Thailand. Let's have a little bit of good luck for this guy here.
Oregon.
In Oregon, USA. Sarah Williams is from Portsmouth. See here, somebody says here, Tony Oliveira, we are all connected.
100%.
You see, I don't go with this thing, we're all one. No, I don't say we're all one, because we're all individuals and we're all sovereign beings, but we are most certainly all connected. Look at that. We've got somebody
Bristol,
coming in from Manila,
London, Cornwall.
From North Cornwall. Jan C, you're very welcome. Come in for the crumpets.
For a cup of tea.
And I just want to say, the crumpets at Camelot Castle are absolutely fantastic. Somebody's saying we reach millions. You have to guess. You have to guess the amount that we reach.
Canada.
And you'd be very surprised at the figure. We have worked it out.
East Grinstead. Oh, hi, Evelyn.
Evelyn from sunny
Thank
East
you
Grinstead.
for joining us, Evelyn, because we are on YouTube today.
We're on YouTube today. Trump is cutting off China.
Florida, USA.
Florida, USA.
Hello.
Millions, I hope. Yes, it was more than a million. More than a million. So we've had a very, very positive thing. Now, we're broadcasting this particular broadcast on YouTube today because we were blocked on Facebook for posting a cure or a proposed cure. I better not say a cure because that's probably why they blocked me.
Probably you'll get banned from YouTube if you say that.
A doctor was reporting on something that he felt was another solution for COVID-19. So, but we can't say the word cure.
No.
So we're not saying cure. We're saying
not a cure.
Not a cure. Don't say cure the word because they don't like that word.
No.
So, but anyway, that's what's going on. But you can actually, we tweeted the video. You tweeted the original YouTube video. What I'd like all of you to do is go to my Twitter account at John Mappin and at IMMappin, Irina Mappin, and retweet that. Look at that. Love from Austria.
Oh, lovely.
We love Austria. And we're going to be going back to Austria. We're going to be going back to Salzburg.
We love Salzburg.
In fact,
and
this
we love
jacket, there we
Vienna.
go, is from Austria. How about that? My
Zinc, yes,
zinc is very good.
Very good zinc.
So we got all sorts of good things going on. Thank you so much Thank you so much. John, you have a lovely habit of repeating a word twice. Do I?
My brother does the same. I've nicknamed you Johnny 2 times.
Well, you're very good. Helen, that's very kind of you. Hello from Bristol. My gosh.
Bristol, yes, Bristol. Hello. We went to Bristol 2 days ago.
Bristol.
Bristol
Cribbs Causeway we were, weren't we?
and people need to wake up because that was sad. It was locked down and no people out shopping. It was very...
Anyway, it's been lovely to spend a little bit of time with you. We're going to ring off now.
We'll hopefully be back on Facebook.
We'll be back
Hopefully,
on Facebook
if we
tonight.
don't say cure too many times.
If we don't say cure too many times, we'll be back on Facebook tonight. I'm just trying to work out how to...
Okay.
We'll say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you
and
so much.
Thank you for tuning in. And please share.
Oh, and by the way, Camelot Castle is now open.
Mm.
We have the most delicious crumpets, probably, arguably, in the world. They are absolutely delightful. So for those of you out there that would like a bit of crumpet, that fancy a bit of crumpet, do come to Camelot Castle. It's a lovely place to come, and the tea and crumpets here are absolutely delicious. And that's actually why I have to get off the broadcast, because I'm going to have a bit of crumpet right now.
Wait a minute. Please follow Simon Dolan at Simon Dolan. Simon Dolan.
Sign
on
up.
Twitter,
follow Simon Dolan on Twitter,
and share the whistleblowing message. And let's have people writing into Simon with their stories. This is really important.
If you're aware of any whistleblowers, or if you know anybody in the NHS, forward this video to them and let them know that to start blowing their whistles. It can all be done anonymously. Nobody's going to say who they are, but we need to get the truth to the people. That's our job. That's your job. We are the news. You are the news.
And that's the future.
We can't trust
country.
the BBC. We cannot trust the BBC. This is now the Camelot Broadcasting Corporation, the CBC, much better than the BBC. And we may make the odd error, and our technical department may be bloody useless. It's a bloody useless technical division. But we're well-intentioned.
We're good people.
We don't get it right all the time.
We try.
And sometimes we have people on here that, frankly, even nobody would believe a word they say. But you know what? We like to give everybody a voice, and we just tell you it's up to you. It's up to you, the viewer, to decide. And makes it fun, doesn't it, too? You can decide. Now, we'll say goodbye now. Thank you very much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
you.